People of the internet, what's the worst work story or company experience you have? Story 1. For me, it was a few years back when I went over 36 hours without a break. I clocked in for my shift at 6 a.m. Thanksgiving Eve at a gas station. Someone was supposed to relieve me at 4 p.m. and didn't show or call. The gas attendant outside went home after staying 3 hours past his shift because no one showed up to relieve him either. Being that I was the assistant manager, I was in charge and the only one at the 24-hour location. I called everyone on the schedule and everyone ignored my calls. I called every store within miles and no one could help. I called the store manager, district manager, and even the regional manager to send someone, but they were all celebrating their holidays and ignored my calls and texts. I watched the sun go up, come down, go up, and come down again. In my state you can't pump your own gas, and because I didn't have an attendant I had to turn down every single customer for gas and get yelled at every time because it was the last gas station before a major highway. We had strict rules and were told that we'd be fired if we ever closed the pumps, even if we couldn't pump gas because it would make us look bad. We were also told that no one at any point in time can close the store because we were a 24-hour location and anyone who did so would be fired. One of the part-time employees finally showed up for her 4-hour shift at 7 p.m. Thanksgiving Day. I was furious, but also so relieved I could go home and was afraid she'd leave me there if I flipped out. My fiancé warmed up my Thanksgiving dinner in the microwave, rubbed my back while I practically fell asleep into my food, and then went to bed. I saw the same pattern happening a couple of weeks later where no one showed up and was ignoring my calls. I took a chain and padlock out of the supply shed and chained the doors closed. They had no lock. My managers were ignoring me again, so I texted them that the registers were closed and accounted for, lights turned off, chains on the doors, and where I hid the key for whomever showed up. Almost immediately my phone started blowing up with calls from every one of my managers all the way up to the VP of sales for the entire Eastern region. I ignored every single call and message. The next morning I drove past the station and saw someone must have shown up. Found out later that my manager and district manager were fired. I don't know if this was the reason. But that was the end of that. Story 2. I work for a large retailer. During the first major wave of COVID, we had almost half our staff out due to COVID. Most of us were working 7-8 days in a row, sometimes 12 hours a day during the holiday season. We were burnt out and tired. It culminated Christmas Eve. When we had a double truck, the store was slammed. We were completely overwhelmed. Corporate did a visit and gave each one of us a single piece of Dove chocolate and told us to keep up the work. It was absolutely degrading. That's all we were given after working ourselves ragged. And the company was making record profits and gave our bonuses between $50K and $80K to district and store leaders. Turnover has been through the roof since then. Story 3. My husband passed after a 10-year battle with cancer. I had 3 whole days of bereavement. My boss was unhappy with me still being emotional. It's not like his death was a surprise. Suck it up, is what she told me. Story 4. I'm a maintenance guy, janitor at a crummy hotel. I've had to deal with some pretty gross stuff, but I don't have it as bad as the housekeepers. There's an older woman who works as a housekeeper at the same hotel, and she's been there a lot longer than me. She's told me a few stories, and there are 2 that come to mind when you mention horror story. First horror story, some guy and his girlfriend got a room there, and I don't know how long they intended to stay there. But they were asked to leave after only one night because the woman was apparently on her period, and she bled all over the bed. The sheets and the entire mattress were ruined and had to be thrown out. The manager almost had to call the cops because when asked to leave, the dude got pissed and threatened to beat his ass. Luckily, he backed down as soon as the manager mentioned calling the cops. Second horror story, there was another guy who stayed there for a little while, and he obviously had some issues. The housekeeper hated this guy because his room was always a mess, and he just acted weird. One day she went in to clean his room and the guy had apparently collected some rocks from outside and had drawn all over part of the wall with them. He must have gotten bored with using rocks, because the other wall had crap smeared all over it. The housekeeper went straight to the manager and basically told him, "You either kick this nasty bastard out of here, or I quit." Hearing these stories made me glad that I don't have to clean the rooms. It also makes me respect housekeepers more because they have to clean up after some disgusting people. Story 5. Worked at an airport loading bags. Had a coworker drive a lavatory service truck into the side of the plane. caused $80,000 in damage. Story 6. Don't piss off Leanne. No, you don't work for her, she's the main admin. No, she's not a manager. No, she has no input to your work reviews. But she's the single conduit for all office supplies, the gas cards, the expense reports, and she has the ear and respect of every hard wall manager. If you want to stick around, don't piss off Leanne. Story 7. Guy used to watch porn at his desk. He sat in the back corner of the office, so he'd be able to see if someone was coming his way. Finally got caught when a few people tipped off his boss because he forgot to turn his speakers off one day. They called him in to fire him and he claimed he had a problem, so they couldn't fire him. He stayed for a few more years slacking off and doing absolutely nothing, but finally got canned for being lazy. Story 8. Woman I work with has done all of the following, and has since been made manager. Got drunk at work on at least 3 occasions in the last 12 months. Made hot whiskeys for everyone in the office twice at Christmas. Met a guy at a nightclub and brought him back to the office for sexy time and got caught by the owner. Drunk drove to work the night before and slept in her car parked outside the office in the road. Took 3 days off in the last year to attend court hearings in relation to her drunk driving. Had a dress delivered to the office and proceeded to change into it in the front office. No customers were present, but the front wall is entirely glass. Story 9. I work at a broker-dealer, so some of the things I see are ridiculous. Hearing stories about the good old days is one of my favorite parts of this job. Apparently back in the day, one of the top producers, Harry, was talking to a potential customer. The banker was being an ass to Harry and just not showing him an ounce of respect. So Harry yelled, "Suck my D." The potential client asked, "What did you say?" "Say it again." So Harry repeated himself. As it turns out, this banker was a closet gay and liked dirty talk. So anytime Harry called him, he would have to talk dirty to him in order to sell him a bond. Fast forward a few months. The other brokers started to realize what was going on because Harry would creep under his desk when he got on the phone with this specific customer. One time when he was on the phone with the gay banker, the head trader set Harry's phone so it would come through over the speakers on the trading floor. Everyone on the entire floor heard Harry telling this banker all of the details. I have so many of these stories that it is ridiculous and comparable to Wolf of Wall Street. There is actually a book based on 2 of the old guys that I work with. It is called Bond Daddy. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more crazy stories.